Hello everyone, I'm Bruffy1322 and this video, alongside the previous 3 and next 1 in the series, is going to showcase the fastest fully upgraded vehicles in GTA Online overall in terms of lap time, with this video focusing on positions 200 to 101. As always, the position counter is in the top left with the best lap time the vehicle achieved in the top right, and in a mirror of how this series started, we won't be including planes, boats, helicopters or bikes in this list. So the last video covering cars from 300 to 201st place was a little bit of a downer. I was talking more about the future of testing and how testing has affected me and all that kind of stuff. So we'll put all that behind us. I'm still interested to hear all your thoughts in that one. If you didn't see it or you missed that one, I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are in the comments of that video. But for this one, let's focus on the cars a bit more, because this is where we start to see some quicker cars, sort of the bread and butter of the game, the most popular vehicles, and we even start to see some class leaders as well. We've seen ever so often in the previous 3 videos there'll be a one-off vehicle that is top of its class, but more in the obscure classes like industrial with the Guardian or service with the Dune, something like that. Here we definitely start to see some more standard vehicles that, back in the day in 2013, 2014 would have been either class leaders themselves or at least on the top pace, but with the addition of DLCs over the years, they might not be at the very top of the class, but still, iconic vehicles that we all know and use frequently. And especially when we get to the top 15 of this list as well, we see a good number of class leaders, obviously second only to the next video in the series, which is going to cover the top 100. I spoke a little bit too soon in the previous video, because I said that I can't see any of the future videos having the amount of instances where cars share the same lap time, but it's not far off this one. We actually have 5 instances in this video where 2 cars share exactly the same lap time. We've got no triples or anything like that like we did in the previous video, but yeah, it's still pretty amazing, to be honest, that even now we've got cars sharing the same lap times as we get sort of further up the order. Although I guess in a way that's not necessarily to be not too surprising, because out of all of the videos, I'm doing 5 videos covering 500th to 400th, 400th to 300th and so on, 100 cars in every video pretty much. This is the one that has the densest collection of lap times. So there's only about 4 seconds separating the last car in this list to the first car in this list. And that is absolutely crazy when you think about it. 100 cars all separated by 4 seconds of lap time. That's very tightly packed. That's a lot of vehicles that are on very similar lap times. And when we come to the final video tomorrow, the top 100, I'm going to sort of go over some stats and things like that. And talk about sort of the most common lap times and what are the sort of most densely packed in that way as well. But yeah, in terms of the actual videos, even the last video, it sort of extends a little bit more as we get to the really, really fast cars. So this 100 is as tight as it's going to be, and we're sort of witnessing that with the lap times that you'll see through this video. They don't really change that much from vehicle to vehicle. Obviously they do overall over the course of the video. 4 seconds is still quite a lot, but you've got 100 vehicles packed into that. So from vehicle to vehicle, there's not an awful lot of difference. It might be a tenth here, half a tenth there. It's just gradually improving on the lap times. And we've got such a wide variety of classes as well. A lot of the sports cars are starting to come in at this stage. I will say that as I was going and editing through this, it was starting to get a little bit easier to, for example, the label in the top left where I say what position it is in that class. A lot of it was sports cars, so I could just sort of copy and paste sports and put the actual position for that. It was a lot easier than sort of the first couple of videos where I'm having to change the class every single time because there's more of a variety. And it just kind of goes to show that, especially when it comes to the muscle and sport classes, which I think dominate this video in particular, there's so many vehicles that could be elsewhere. You've got sports cars mixed in with coupes, mixed in with muscle, mixed in with sports classics, and I think it highlights that the class system doesn't make any sense. And the fact that we've got over 80 vehicles in the sports class, it's just crazy. And we are getting through a lot of them here just because the sheer number of vehicles in sports, and a lot of them have the sort of pace that is around this area, which is, I would consider this sort of the 1 minute 8 to 1 minute 6 to 1 minute 5 level of lap time. I would consider that sort of bog standard sports car pace. We've obviously seen cars that extend beyond that, significantly so, when we get to the very quickest sports cars. But, historically, the quickest that we used to have was kind of the Elegy and the Feltzer for the sports class. And while we're not going to see those in this video, they're not too far ahead. And I think sort of a 1 minute 4 range is about right. 1 minute 4, 1 minute 5 for the top sports cars, going down to maybe a 1 minute 8, 1 minute 9. And then you've got your sports classics and muscle cars that feel more right at like the 1 minute 10, 1 minute 11 range, because that's just the nature of the vehicles. But as we've gone further on in the game and DLC vehicles have been added and power creepers come in so that newer cars are always quicker than the older cars, we start to basically get vehicles that act like sports cars in other classes. And we'll see that in this video, where you start to see muscle cars with sports car lap times, and then we also at the top end get sports cars with supercar lap times, and it just keeps going and going. So yeah, it's interesting, the mix of vehicles that are in this video from these positions, and it's just such a wide variety. And interestingly, we actually see our very first supercar coming up very shortly as well, in the 169th place, the quintessential supercar, the Bullet, of course. It's amazing that, even when the game first came out in 2013, there were only 7 supercars, and the Bullet was already way off the pace, and it's only gotten worse and worse as more quicker supercars have been added over the years. And when you consider that, it's right smack bang in the middle of all these other sports car lap times, or more some of the newer sports classics and muscle cars, it's just, the Bullet is such a it's a really nice car to drive as well. We've had some really good races with it over the years when we've sort of restricted the racing to just the Bullet. It's just a shame that it was stuck in supercars, and even in 2013 it was way off the pace, and it still remains the slowest supercar. At least we haven't had a slower supercar added. That's something, at least, because other classes have had slower cars added at the bottom end. But yeah, it still remains the slowest supercar, and the first supercar we've seen in this entire list, right on the pace of the Buffalo S in sports, as you saw there. But this is the 300th video of this series, which is kind of crazy. It's kind of amazing. There's only going to be one more, which is the next video covering the top 100. So this series, this best fully upgraded cars series for lap time, is going to end on over 300 videos, and that is absolutely crazy for one series on my channel to have over 300 videos, and this is number 300. When I first started this series, as I was talking about in the very first episode, or the very first part of this mini-series where we covered the slowest vehicles, back in 2014 when I first tested everything fully upgraded, I don't know whether I thought I would still be doing it, 8 years later in 2022. I probably thought we'd have another game by then. I mean, most of us probably did, let's be honest. But yeah, the fact that I've kind of been doing this for so long, and it's stood the test of time, and retesting has happened, and improvements have been made to the videos themselves, but kept sort of the same baseline experience, and it's just been a great experience to go through all of this and reach that incredible milestone. I can't imagine that any other video series will reach over 300 videos. Obviously, a lot of it is to do with the fact that we've got, the DLC update videos, which looking back, I wish I'd done a little bit differently, and if I continue to do this sort of thing in the future, I will treat a little bit differently. Towards the end of this series, I went more towards the idea that I would put updates to DLC vehicles in the weekly news series, and then one video at the end of the DLC with all the drip feed vehicles in, showcasing all the updates there. And that's actually how I started doing it back when I did the stock series. But then in an effort to sort of keep everything up to date, so people coming back and looking at the playlist later on, for example, would be able to quickly see, the fastest supercars for a certain year, and then all of the updates that aren't included in that original video. I kept, trying to split up the videos by class. So we'd have fastest supercars for 2020, and then fastest supercars Furia, fastest supercars, I don't know, whatever the latest supercars have been, Xeno, all that kind of stuff. But, splitting them up like that has just bloated the playlist to 300. Really, 300 videos is too many for a reasonable playlist, and a lot of them are sort of 2, 3, 4 minute videos just covering a single or one or two DLC cars, and that's not really how it should be. So, the whole series has been a learning experience when you think that we're 300 videos in, and it's taken so many different forms over the years, but kept to the same, base that is testing cars and showcasing the lap times on a track. By the way, here is the best car in the game, the Omnis. I just have to mention it. If it's showing on the screen, I have to mention it. Favorite car of all time in GTA. But yeah, it has been a learning experience for me to go through all of this and change the way that the text on the labels, when you look back, it's ropey, and the comparison at the end now has a nice background, and rather than just being black, and little improvements like that. And then also changing the way that I approached the making of the videos, from going to the single videos for DLC vehicles to try and keep it organized, and then deciding that that's not the best way to do it. Here's our first place, by the way, with the club, the dominant force in compacts, only just behind the RT3000 in the sports class. It's amazing that we've got a compact having the same sort of lap time as a sports car. But yeah, it's been an amazing experience, and the fact that we've hit 300 videos is remarkable. And I want to thank you guys for the support to even reach this point, because without you guys, I wouldn't still be doing this. And I hope it's all of these videos, all 300 of them, have been a help to you over the years. And I'll organise the playlist now in order of in chronological order, since the playlist is sort of coming to an end, the series is coming to an end, and any future testing will, be a separate series for the new gen versions of the game. I'll organise the playlist. I'll have these 5 videos, this mini series focusing on all of the cars overall. I'll have that at the top, and then the rest will all be in chronological order, so you can see the latest update and all 522 cars, and then you can immediately go to the original countdown of 140 cars. But obviously just be aware that the commentary probably won't be quite as good, or the way that I speak on videos might be a little bit ropey, and the editing and all that kind of stuff. But then you can go through and check it all out and see where we came from and what we've gone through over the years, and all the meme videos and stuff like that. I doubt there's anyone who's going to go watch all 300 videos of this series, but it's the biggest series on my channel, so if you ever want to just put something on in the background, this is the one to get through the most videos. And I think it's absolutely poetic that the adder is going to be featured in this video. I'm not going to tell you when you're going to see it, but it is in this video, and I had to, with the adder being in this video, I had to include it as the thumbnail for this video. The adder was, it was always the vehicle that everybody thought was the best back then, back in the day. At least anybody who didn't do any kind of racing, and, as soon as you raced even a few races, you immediately knew that the Entity in 2013 was the best. but the Adder was the one that was the most expensive. It was the only one that was $1 million to buy, and it was the one that everybody wanted because of that expense. It was the most expensive supercar. It had the best top speed of all the supercars. It didn't have the best top speed in the game. That was the Z-Type. But, you know, people consistently mistakenly thought that the Adder was the best car, and that's why it sort of became a meme. That's why I went back and did all the time trials recently in the Adder, and it's still one of the best cars to race with, actually, just because it doesn't get all of the spoiler upgrades, and it's still got a beefy engine, so it's a fun, challenging car to race with. And it's poetic that it's in this sort of second to last video. It doesn't even make the top 100, even, you know, now with all the DLC cars added. It's not even able to get into the top 100, and it reminds me of the initial backlash that I had to my testing videos. Most of my testing videos these days, they sit at 98 or 99% like to dislike ratio, with those that get more widespread, say for example like the 2020 supercars videos for top speed or lap time, they tend to drop maybe to 97%, but ultimately most of the time that's the lowest it ever goes. But when I looked back at that original testing video of stock cars from 2013, that's currently at a 91% like to dislike ratio, which is still great, but that's still probably one of the lowest ratios of likes to dislikes on my entire channel. And it has significantly more comments on that video than what I would get on a testing video these days. And it just reminded me of all of the trouble I had to go through back then to sort of persuade people that things like the Adder weren't the best vehicle, things like the Carbonizer weren't the best sports car. It was a challenge back then, because there was either an element of people just didn't want to hear it because it was their favorite car and they couldn't accept that it wasn't the quickest. By the way, I'll just point out, you know, this is the part of the list where we sort of see sort of the classic sports cars with lap times of 1:06 for like the Coquette and things like that, mixing it in with sports classic cars like the Sterling GT, the Infernus Classic. And that's why when we got those cars like the Infernus Classic, for example, the Sterling GT, that's why back then I was saying that, you know, sports classics have suddenly just become sports cars. They're not really feeling like sports classics anymore. Sports classics were always like high top speed, not much grip, and we lost that really when we started to get these new breed of vehicles, and that is evidenced by the fact that they're mixed in with a load of other sports car lap times. But anyway, yeah, I don't know what it was that caused such a backlash to those original testing videos, but there was people argued so fiercely on those original testing videos that, you know, you can always poke holes in testing. You can always find ways to test differently, test better, all sorts of things that can be improved all the way or changed, or you're never going to find everybody be absolutely 100% happy with the way that anyone chooses to test. But back then, because it was the first time anyone had ever done any kind of lap time testing rather than just airport drag strip testing or no testing at all, just some YouTuber driving it around a track and seeing what happens and giving their opinions, this was the first time that anyone had really tried to put any kind of factual evidence to support that certain cars were quicker than others. And I think it was difficult in 2013 for a lot of people to understand that. Obviously, there was plenty of people who did and plenty of people who appreciated it, and those are the ones who subscribed to my channel, and some of you might still be here now. But yeah, it was just such an argument, and when you look back at some of those original comments in that original stock cars video, that was before this series even existed and I'd done the fully upgraded stuff. It's just amazing, and I think I'm thankful that has kind of passed at this point, and I don't know whether it's because the people who would argue the point aren't here anymore to continue, you know, they don't watch my testing videos anymore, or it's just that the idea of people testing stuff and finding results and YouTube has become more of a thing than it was in 2013. So maybe that is all taking it into account, and people are more readily sort of accepting of the results that I might give them in a testing video, or I've just been doing this for so long that people generally, believe what I'm putting out, which is why I talked about everything I talked about in the last video of wanting to make sure that I'm doing it right. But yeah, it's just the fact that the adder is here on the 300th video just reminds me of all of that, and the difficulty that I had in those early days of trying to get people to understand what I was trying to do. And some of the comments, when you look back, it's like, why are you taking it around a track? You should be doing just a straight line drag strip. And just people not understanding what goes into car performance, why you can't just take a car on a drag strip and expect to know how it's going to perform in any racing situation. And I guess it's been a consistent battle over the last 8 years to make sure people understand that. But maybe the fact that these testing videos don't get 91% like to dislike ratio instead, and they're sat at 98-99% like normal, maybe that is testament to what I've been able to do over the last 8 years and the last 300 videos in persuading people and getting people to realize a more sort of scientific and proper way to understand car performance. So maybe, I don't know, watch this video start, it'll get 89% like to dislike ratio. I can see it already. But yeah, we're coming on to the final 15 cars. We had the Previan there with the number one coupe, obviously a brand new, one of the latest vehicles. It was added with the Tuners DLC, and a brand new first in class. And we're going to see a few firsts in class in these final 15 videos as well, mixed in with some of the classic sports cars as well, and some new sports cars, with Comet Retro Custom being pretty much on the same pace as the Comet S2 and all that kind of stuff. And obviously we've also got some first in classes for non-raceable classes as well. I don't think I've really mentioned that as part of this series because it's something that I've been doing for a while now, but I tried to split up the classes between raceable and non-raceable. So all of the off-road vehicles, for example, that you can't use in a race, I treat them as sort of a separate class entirely, so that the non-raceable vehicles don't mess up the order of the raceable vehicles. You want to know which is the quickest vehicle you can use in a race for muscle cars or something, or sports classics. You don't really want to know the fact that the Vigilante is the quickest supercar, for example. It's not really relevant because you can't use it in a race. And the fact that it uses boosts to get its speed, there's all sorts of things with the Vigilante, but that is evidenced by, for example, the Imperator, with it being the first in muscle non-raceable. Yes, it's the number one muscle car for the non-raceable muscle cars, but there's still plenty of other muscle cars quicker than it as well. Although, no, there aren't. There's not many muscle cars that are quicker than it these days, actually. There's only been a few new ones, because the muscle classes really moved on. We're not even going to see the number one muscle car in this video. The number one muscle car is in the top 100 cars of all cars in the game, which is kind of crazy. I've always felt muscle cars should be less grippy and a little bit slower in terms of lap time, but has those really high straight line speeds. But hey, everything just handles like a sports car these days, so what can you do? But yeah, we're coming to sort of the end of the 300th video, and coming to the end of this series in general. There's only going to be one more video left, the top 100 cars in GTA as of the making of these videos. There will be DLC cars added. There's going to be DLC cars and new cars added with the expanded and enhanced edition. How and when I test those, obviously that'll be for the future as well. But yeah, as of right now, as of the PS4 and Xbox One versions of the game, which won't be getting those new cars, we're reaching the end, and we're getting to the top 100 vehicles. We got the Adder in 102nd place, the 45th quickest supercar, with that 1 minute 4.9 lap time. It still just misses out on the top 100, just behind the Cheetah Classic, which is the second best sports classic car. And that will wrap us up for the 300th video of this series. And then we're going to move on to the top 100 in the next one. I hope you'll all be there to wish the series a good end. And yeah, thank you all so much as always for the support. And I'll see you in the next one for the final 100.